Hey everybody, it's Jason from Firearms Unknown, and today I have the great pleasure of talking to you about one of my favorite rifles, the Barrett M82. We're actually going to do a comparison video today between two different Barretts, the Barrett M82, which you see in front of you, and the Barrett M82 A1, which is the more contemporary or current version that's out in use today. As you can see in front of me, I got my rifle. As always, we're going to go ahead and check and make sure that our chamber is clear and that we don't have any ammunition. I do have a magazine with me today just because look at the size of this magazine, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but it's clear of ammunition as well. So what you see in front of you today is one of the original 100 Barrett M82s that were produced by Barrett in 1982. These were the first 50 caliber shoulder fired weapons that were available to the public by Barrett, and we're fortunate enough to know somebody that owns one of these. So today we're getting an opportunity to play around with it a little bit, talk about it, and we're going to talk to you the differences between the original Barrett M82 and the M82 A1, which I have behind me that I'll bring up a little bit later. So the Barrett M82 finally went into production. I believe it was available for civilian purchase in 1982 as a shoulder fired 50 caliber semi-automatic weapon system. The M82 per Wikipedia says it weighs about 32 pounds, and I believe that's their current version in a 20-inch barrel with a bunch of shaved down parts. So I would estimate that this particular rifle is coming in at about at least 41, 42 pounds. And it's an absolute pleasure to carry around, if you know what I mean. Now, one of the more interesting facts about the M82s, the original ones that were made, were the barrels were actually repurposed M2 barrels. So these were 50 caliber barrels out of M2 machine guns that were repurposed for these anti-material weapons or long range weapons, however you want to describe it, which is actually kind of a cool history note about the firearm. Now, we found out a lot of interesting things about this particular M82 when the owner was interested in putting a Picatinny section on his scope base. And when he contacted Barrett, at first they were like trying to figure out exactly what he was trying to do, because when he was describing this scope base, that wasn't on the current model. And then ultimately, through the serial number, he ended up getting a hold of somebody in the company that was like, hey, we don't even make parts for that gun anymore. It's unsupported. It's about 40 years old. We've done a lot of changes in the system now. So, you know, they basically advised him not to shoot the gun because it's no longer supported by parts or anything left at the company. Now, there are two interchangeable parts between the Barrett M82 and the M82 A1, and that is going to be the extractor and the front bushing sleeve. Other than that, the guns are completely different internally. There's also a lot of exterior differences that we'll go over in the comparison video. But the one thing they do have in common is that they fire the 50 caliber round, and they're one of the coolest rifles that's able to do that. Now, some of the other interesting side notes about this particular rifle or model of the M82, for all of you Gen Xers out there, or maybe a little bit older, if you remember the original movie RoboCop, this was the rifle that they used to attack him in that movie. Now, the more contemporary version of the M82 would be something that you'd have seen in the movie Navy SEALs, or even the Hurt Locker for something a little bit more recent. That's going to be the M82 A1. Now, we are going to eventually break this gun open and show you a little bit about the inside of it, but we'll just go over some of the features real quick before we get to that point. So as you can see, it runs off your standard, it kind of has an AR-15 style grip and safety selector switch on the left side of the gun, so there's a fire and safe there. You have your takedown pins that are located on the right side of this gun. Because I'm a right-handed shooter, I have the pin set up for the right side. If you're a left-handed shooter, you can reverse those and put them on the left side so that they're not intrusive on your body at all. You have your charging handle. You have your Reaver style scope mount. It's a high-rise scope mount. This is incidentally one of the reasons that we found out that this gun was completely different than the current M82 models. You see that we have our dust cover here. It's non-vented, which is something that's completely different from the current models as well. We have our 29-inch barrel. As I stated, this is a repurposed M2 barrel, and our medium profile brake that we have down there. It has your standard Barrett bipod, and that's about it for the external features. Now, what's really interesting about this gun is, you know, when you think about shooting a 50 cal off your shoulder, and I know you've probably seen videos of people shooting them standing up, and a lot of people shooting them prone or shooting them off benches. But the interesting thing about this gun is the recoil arc that you get from it. Because of the reciprocating barrel that it has, as you can see there, it's a short reciprocation there. It's supposed to be about 1 inch. It's going to eat up some of that recoil. So by the time that energy moves back to the end of the stock, which has this nice big foam rubberized pad on it, instead of getting that real peaky, super sharp impact into your shoulder, what you end up getting is more of a shove into your shoulder. Now, on the other side of that, you really need to stay into this gun because of the recoil operation. If you're too light on the back end, it won't recoil all the way, and you're going to short stroke, and you're going to have issues getting ammo into the system. So it is a recoil operated system, and it does have, it's what's considered a short recoil because of that reciprocating barrel. So we're going to go ahead, break it open, and show you a little bit of the internal parts on this gun. And when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and move this magazine right here so that it doesn't fly off my table. As I stated earlier, I went ahead and checked my chamber, so we're clear, no ammo in our mag. It's a rock style magazine, so it's similar to an AK-47, or like I say, more like an M1A. So you're going to stick the front of the magazine into the chamber and then rock it to the rear. All right, and then same thing on removal. Rear lever is pushed, it releases it, and it rocks out forward, okay? So just kind of like an M1A mag or AK-47 mag. Incidentally, this magazine is an 11-round magazine. I believe that the current M82 A1 models are a 10-round magazine, but the original M82 was an 11. All right, so we're going to go ahead and break this thing open and show you what the basic breakdown for the M82 is. I will not be removing the barrel or the bushings today. I'm just going to break the gun in half, and we'll talk a little bit about the internals of the firearm. So to break this down, obviously we're going to make sure that we're clear of ammo just one last time. Better safe than sorry. And we're going to go ahead and remove the rear pin, and then we're going to remove the front pin. Now, once those pins are removed, we have to take the bolt slightly out of battery to get the top end off the rifle. So what I'm going to do is going to reach back here and just pull it slightly out of battery, and then I'm going to start lifting the top end off. Now I'm going to go ahead and let my bolt run forward until it gets into a nice seated position. Now, as I go to take the top end off of the rifle, the front end is hooked in on a lug, so I have to rotate it up high enough that I can unhook it off the lug bar, and then I have my rifle in two pieces. So I'm going to kind of move that so I can get some space right here for you. Now, when you look at the bottom half of the rifle, as you can see, we have our bolt here, we have our bolt face. Now, when you look at this, I'm actually going to slave this to the back a little bit so that I can pick it up without worrying about this bolt going forward on me. Right there. All right. So when you look at this bolt face, you can see where some of the designing was definitely inspired by the AR-15 bolt face. All right. They did put these nice little hole here so that you can slave your bolt to the rear when you're working on the gun. It also makes it really easy for when you're taking it on and putting it back on and taking it off. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the upper receiver on this rifle. And I'm going to do that by kind of standing it up right here in front of the counter. As you can see, these are the springs that are going to help run that reciprocating barrel. Then we have one of our replaceable parts in the bushing, and then we have our chamber. Now, this firearm was checked with a go, no-go gauge, and it's good to go. We have good head spacing, and we are eventually going to shoot it so that we can get some video of the original M82 being fired out at the range. Now, if you keep tuned with me, I'm going to go ahead and do a comparison video with the M82 A1. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and slap this thing back together really quick to show that I can actually do it. So I'm going to start by placing the lug back on the lug bar in the front, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of center everything up. And just like when I took it apart, I'm going to go ahead and pick this up, slide it back towards me a little bit, take the tension off that pin, remove it, and I'm going to drop my dust cover and top end back down on top, and then let that bolt run all the way forward. And again, because I'm a right-handed shooter, I'm going to go ahead and put my pins in the right side of the firearm. And once I get those back into position, pressed all the way through, I can go ahead and check my action, make sure everything's working, check my safety. It's engaged, and then that beautiful massive Barrett 50 caliber trigger pull. Stand by and you're going to see me do the review of the M82 A1. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Jason from Firearms Unknown, and just as promised, we're here to talk a little bit now about the contemporary Barrett M82 A1. So just like we did in the other video, we're going to go ahead and just reconfirm you got nothing in the chamber and nothing in the mag. All right, so what you see right now is a brand new 20-inch Barrett M82 A1 50 caliber rifle. Just like the other rifle that we talked about, It is a short recoil semi-automatic weapon system, firing the 50 BMG. Now, when we talked about the other gun, we showed all the things that the original Barrett had, and now we're going to show you all the things that the contemporary Barrett has and why it's so different than the original Barrett M82. So you can look at it and just see right off the bat, we got fluting in the barrel, we have a much larger profile break. This gun happens to be in a 20-inch barrel. The gun we reviewed earlier is a 29, so this, even though it looks really short, this is actually a 20-inch barrel and a 50 BMG. The contemporary models come with a flip-up sight system, so if you did have the idea of trying to fire iron sights on this thing, you can do that. Comes with the carry handle, which is something that the original Barrett did not come with. And as we spoke earlier in the video, you can see they've gone ahead and they've done some milling in the dust cover. That's taken away some weight, but it also allows some airflow through the system to cool the barrel. All right. It also comes with the monopod back here on the back, so that can help set your firing angles and take a little bit of the pressure off the shooter as far as holding up the back end. Also comes with that Rock and Fire 10-round box magazine. So just like we talked about with the other gun, it's a front insertion and a rock to the rear, and then a button release rock forward. Controls are identical. Same AR-15 style pistol grip, same AR-15 style safety selector switch over here on the left-hand side. They did enhance the charging handle, which is one of the things that I really like about the new M82, is by moving it up and giving that a little bit rock forward, it actually gives you a little bit more pull on the bolt to help you get it running back. Now, the really nice thing about this gun compared to the other gun, and I think we talked about it in the video, is this gun weighs in at 32 pounds as it sits right now. So you can actually pick this up and manipulate it a little bit. Now, if I had the original M82 up here, I could pick it up, but I'm not throwing it out in front of me and doing those kind of things. The amount of weight on that gun is significant compared to this rifle. So we'll go ahead and break this open, just like we broke open the other M82, and kind of show you some of the very subtle differences that are inside, but make the guns almost completely different. So the takedown is identical. We have our takedown pin in the rear, we have our takedown pin in the front. So I've removed my rear takedown pin, and just like before, I'm going to go ahead and remove my takedown pin in the front, set those right here where I always know they're at. Just like the original M82, has to be slightly pulled out of battery so that we can lift that dust cover off. Now, one of the side notes when you deal with these carry handles is that when the carry handle's flipped over on the side and you go to lift up your dust cover, it will grab the magazine well sometimes and hold it in place. So when you go to do that, you kind of have to get your bolt back, get that up and out of the way, and then you can lift the top end off the gun, let your bolt kind of slide forward and find that safe spot. And it's got the same locking lug mechanism in the front, so we got that bar with that locking hook right up here in the very front. So before we kind of get into that upper, set that down, make sure it's not going anywhere. The current M82 has the same feature. It's got the slave hole here so we can pull back and hold it in position. The reason we do that is so that it doesn't end up running forward, because getting it back in here sometimes can be mildly problematic. So we can go ahead and take our long pin, pull that back, and actually slave that bolt to the rear. All right. Now, same bolt face. As I said before, one of the interchangeable parts between the original M82 and the contemporary M82 A1 is the extractor and the front buffer right up here, okay? Look at the bolt face, it's almost identical with the exception of a cantilever system, and it runs off a rod on the left side. I don't know exactly what that does, but it's definitely a different system than it's in the other firearm. When we look at the top end, it's almost identical again on the inside, although the parts are probably made a little bit different and the fitting is a little bit different. We have our recoil springs that helps with that reciprocating barrel, and then we have our sliding lug, and we have our chamber here. Stamped metal, complete dust cover, and then like I said in the original video, the whole reason that we found out that our M82 was completely different was we wanted to put a Picatinny rail mount on it. So the current contemporary model comes set up with your mounting system. So you can end up putting up a higher scope mount in there if you need a little bit more height on that, or you can direct mount right onto that Picatinny, and there's a lot of scope mounting options that come off that Picatinny section. And when you're firing a weapon system that fires around that's generating the amount of probably recoil vibration that this is, you want to make sure that you have a really solid mounting option if you're running optic on this firearm. So, wonderful gun. They're a lot of fun to shoot. I've actually had an opportunity to shoot several of these over my career, my lifetime. And like I said, they're just a hoot to shoot. If you ever get a chance to get out and get behind one, I recommend that you do it. For all you big bore enthusiasts out there, you know, this is kind of getting up there at the top edge of what you're looking for when you get out there and start shooting the long range big bore rifles. If you have any questions about the M82, and this M82 incidentally is currently at our Yuma store. So if you want to come in and take a look and check this thing out, it's going to be here and available for you to see, well, for as long as it's here in the store. Or if you want to come and see the original M82 and get a look at what started the entire process, we have one of those in the store as well. So if you have any questions about the Barrett M82 A1 or any of our other great products, feel free to contact us at Firearms Unknown. This is Jason saying see you next time.